morning and welcome back to Earnings Edge right here on NDTV Profit. We're now taking stock of Maruti Suzuki after the company reported its Q4 earnings on Friday. Revenue was up 10% in this particular quarter, but EBITDA was down 9%, dragging the overall margins to about 10.5%. Subsequently, the net profit is also down 4% in this particular quarter. Talk more about this and much more about what's the expectation for Maruti Suzuki as well as for the auto industry in FY26. We are now joined by Mr. R.C. Bhargava, the current chairman of Maruti Suzuki. Mr. Bhargava, thanks so much for joining in. I just wanted to start off first with, Q4 earnings and then try to get a more nuanced view for the industry from you as well. In this particular quarter, we had the revenue, the numbers for volumes already, but the EBITDA margin was down roughly about 9%. Could you just talk us through first on that aspect, because some other expenses were up by about 14% this quarter. You also had the Kharkhoda plant and some expenses there. If you could just, let us know what led to this fall in EBITDA in this particular quarter to start us off.
The detailed financial and reporting would have been done by our CFO to the analysts. But what I'd like to say is that EBITDA margins can't remain the same or grow every quarter. There are several factors which affect EBITDA margins. They include, and they have a big effect, they include foreign exchange rate variations. In a company like Maruti, they have a big impact because we are both in the export and the market, and we are also importing components and materials. We have a big impact on commodity prices because lots of commodities vary depending on what is happening to the global situation. So this basic thought which I'm getting through this kind of comments is that the market expects your margins to remain the same always or to grow always. It's not a feasible proposition. A company's margins will keep varying. I think what you should look at is the trend of a company's growth and profit and margins over a longer period of time, a year, 2 years, and see how the company is doing. Trying to assess a company's performance every quarter is not conducive to any kind of reasonable decision making.
Fair point, Mr. Bhargava, and we have seen the kind of volatility in this particular quarter across automakers. So fair point to take margins on an annual as well as over a period of time. I also want to just talk about in terms of the price hike specifically. Between January and April, we've seen 3 price hikes announced by the company. January, while it's standard around 3 to 4%, we saw another one in February and then another one in April. Any kind of comments that you can make in terms of price hikes? Is it that the commodity cost has been higher or anything that you can quantify on this?
The April price hikes were entirely related to the extra cost of meeting the new environmental and safety regulations. There's no price increase other than that. Because as a policy, we had decided that we will not take any price hikes, but we have to pass on to the customer. For example, all our vehicles are now being fitted with 6 airbags. This is a government requirement. They add to cost. We have to increase prices if you add on 6 airbags. And that's been one of the factors which has affected price rises.
And Mr. Bhargava, one segment that's been doing very well for you has been the export market. Now, in this year, we had roughly about 3.32 lakh units that was sold. Now, initially the target was of 3 lakhs. So it's, comments to you on this. Now, just want to understand what is the expectation for the next year specifically for exports, because we are expecting, the electric vehicle to also come into, play in this year. And our prior conversations with you as well as your team has been that it will largely be an export-oriented product at the start. So if there's any quantification, because this year you had 17% growth in export, any kind of expectations for FY26?
Our expectation is that exports themselves will grow by about 20% this year. And of the electric vehicles which are manufactured, the bulk of them will be exported also. They will make about 70,000 electric vehicles in this year, which commences. Actually, it's not a full year anyway. And the bulk of this 70,000 will get exported.
And so just going by the 20% rationale, you sold about 3.3 lakh units almost in this year. So just a basic calculation of 20% on that will be almost 4 lakh units. So does these 4 lakh units include these 70,000 units of electric vehicles?
No, all 70,000 won't get exported, but yes, it includes electric vehicle exports also.
And Mr. Bhargava, I just want to understand because in terms of the market in general for exports has been doing very well for you in terms of Middle East and Africa as well. So that growth essentially you are saying that will continue. The 3.3 lakh essentially over and above that, the addition of growth, a lot of it will be driven by electric vehicles. So is that because electric vehicles are a very different proposition, will that be more to developed markets like Japan and others in Europe as well? If there's anything that you can tell us about that?
You're right. Most of the electric vehicles will go to Europe and Japan.
And is that a new geography for you in terms of, while Japan you mentioned you entered this year again in Europe, is that something that you already sell in those markets and this is an addition, or you are going to enter new markets as well, which were untapped to Maruti?
Europe is, for exports, Europe is virtually untouched at the moment.
Okay, understood, sir. Now, in terms of something that we've seen, which is another big pivot for Maruti, is the CNG cars. Now, over the last few years, that's become roughly about 6 lakhs. I think was the number for FY25.
Right. Last year was 6 lakhs,
and
this year we are hoping to get to about 7 lakhs.
Okay, and 7 lakhs currently, because you also have models such as the Brezza which are offered. I think currently there are 13 to 14 models that are offered in CNG market. So anything that you can quantify for next year, because while there's been some from CM as well as others that domestic growth is expected just 1 to 2%. Growth in CNG, you're factoring in a little higher than in terms of ICE vehicles specifically. So anything that you're seeing on the ground that you can tell us in terms of small cars in CNG, do you see a buyer preference for CNG right now because of the cost conscious buyers as well and incomes not rising as much, at least in this year?
A lot of people who buy petrol vehicles prefer to convert to CNG if CNG supply can be assured and the vehicles of their choice is available in CNG. That's why we've been converting more and more vehicles to use CNG. And that is why the market is going up, because the network of infrastructure for distributing CNG is also increasing all the time. Government has given priority to CNG distribution. And one of the results of that is that the availability of CNG as a fuel for an automobile has become much larger.
And Mr. Bhargava, in terms of Capex, any kind of number that you can give us, because you have been investing over the last couple of years as well, a healthy investment and cash balance of over 50,000 crores for you. So what is the Capex plans for next year and any kind of usage? Will that be a lot for Kharkhoda as well, or any other in terms of investment for new development of vehicles?
The budget for the Capex for 25-26 is between 8 and 9,000 crores.
And will that be more so for Kharkhoda or any kind of split that you can give us?
Yes, Kharkhoda will take some substantial amount out of that. There's, of course, the normal Capex which goes on. We provided a small amount, token amount for new plant, land and things when we decide where that is going to be. But the major expenditure out of this is, yes, in Kharkhoda.
And any update that you can give us on your second plant for Gujarat? The environment currently in the domestic market is not very buoyant as of now. So it would be, taking into consideration that, would that be a safe assumption to make that Maruti is currently not in a hurry for putting the second plant, or at least finalizing the land?
I mean, we would like to get the land and other things done. But we will have to carefully evaluate when actually we want to make investments and start new capacity, because it will depend on what the market situation develops in the country.
And Mr. Bhargava, any kind of outlook on terms of new launches that you're expecting in FY26 for Maruti?
Besides the electric vehicle which we have launched, we are expecting to launch one more SUV this year.
And will it be safe to say that it will be, at least above the 10 lakh mark? Because we've also seen the compact SUV market develop very well in India. Anything that you can give us?
I don't think there's anything below 10 lakhs which is worth talking about.
Okay. And just one final question in terms of, the next year growth outlook. While you've spoken about, the incomes of people not going up as much as the expenses of the small cars as well as the hatch segment has gone up. But two of your models, the Swift as well as the Desire, have been accepted very well in the market over the last year. So in terms of FY26 for those models, as well as anything, how are you expecting the reception? Because in terms of pricing, while they are, in the sub 8 to 9 lakh range, and while we've seen the smaller car segment not grow very well, we've seen a very high acceptance of both these models in terms of both ICE and CNG launches, which you've done for the Swift as well.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
how should we view that, the success of those two models compared to the sluggish domestic demand?
No, it's not as if the market for these hatchbacks and Swift small cars has disappeared. It's still a substantial market. What I'm saying is that normally one would expect that in a country like India, where there are 34,000 cars per thousand, the market would be growing at 10-12% a year, which would mean all segments of the market. Here we have a situation where this was a large segment. At one time, it was 70% of the market. It has not disappeared, but it has been declining steadily at a slow rate.
And one final question, Mr. Bhargava, in terms of the global NCAP ratings, the safety car ratings, we've seen both these new models also being 5-star. In terms of safety, so congratulations for that. Would we see in terms of upgrades? Would that be a norm going forward for Maruti as well? Because that's been one factor in terms of buyers' preference as well, apart from features, and I think that's been one of the key factors in terms of the growth of the Desire and the Swift as well. So can it be assumed that the new launches, or at least the upgrades of these vehicles in terms of Baleno and the others, will be 5-star safety rating going forward as well?
We have to evaluate in each case what the overall customer reaction is going to be. Each of these upgrades, getting up to 5 stars, has a cost attached to it. And we have to find out from the market and the customer whether and how many customers would prefer to pay the higher cost for getting a 5-star NCAP rating, or how many would prefer to remain with 6 airbags but not getting 5-star, but not having a further cost increase.
Fair point, Mr. Bhargava. Thanks so much for joining in, sir, and giving us, an outlook of the industry. Apart from talking about Maruti, we wish you the best and look forward to our next conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have on Earnings Edge, on this edition of Earnings Edge on NDTV Profit. Stay tuned for more.